A lot of people are active again, so yeah.
Okay, so we're going live now, so we can already start. Thank you once again, everyone who is tuning in, and welcome to the quarantine sessions. We've done like about 35 quarantine sessions so far, and today I'm super excited because this is a topic that is a buzzword that is everywhere. Growth hacking is the number one question for every entrepreneur, and we have a super woman to tell us about it. Yasmine Helmy, thank you so much for joining.
It's always a pleasure, Valentina. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. So Yasmine has been working with growth marketing and growth hacking for several years. She's leading actually growth marketing in one of the most successful startups in Egypt, which is Instabug. Do you want to tell us a little bit about what you've been doing lately?
Sure. So yeah, it's been quite a journey. I've joined Instabug in 2015. When we were just a small team trying to figure out how we could help mobile teams make sure that their apps are great. And we've been doing so since we started till now. Currently, the team has grown. As you've seen, we just raised our Series A. We're super excited about it. And currently, like the growth marketing team in specific, we're focused on basically taking everything that has worked for us and scale it into being an engine, repeating all the things that we've learned, and also trying during this time as well to see how we could change the things that we're doing to be able to acquire customers as usual, and to try to help more mobile teams to kick ass and ship quality and flawless apps.
Wow, amazing. That was pretty like a lightning tour across Instabug. So let's start with the basics for people who don't know. I mean, everyone knows growth hacking today, but how do you define what growth hacking actually is?
So it's a bit like, it's very interesting to talk about growth hacking, because when it started, it was like a buzzword, and it still is. A lot of people have different misconceptions and definitions on what growth hacking is. Yeah. My definition of it is slightly different, but just to give a heads up on like what is growth hacking when it comes like textbook definition. When it started out, there was this person called Sean Ellis. He was working on growth for Dropbox. And like 10 years before 2020, a lot of tech startups were coming about, and they wanted to basically figure out a way to acquire more customers without having to spend a lot of money, and basically trying to hack their way into getting more revenues and getting more customers. And that's how he came up with the idea and coined the term of growth hacking. Growth hacking is like a framework or a process where you basically come up with several ideas that are basically, if you don't have resources, if you don't have budget, if you don't know exactly which channel to work on to acquire customers, growth hacking is a methodology by which you basically try to come up with inexpensive, iterative solutions to hack a certain part of your engine, whether it's like you want more people to be active, you want to acquire more people, you just started out and you want to get the word out there. Our definition of growth hacking is basically, when we started Instabug, is that we have a product, we validated the product, we have an MVP, we know the personas that we're going to go after, and we basically want to find a way to be able to attract these personas and to eventually get these people to subscribe or use Instabug. So what we did is basically figure out what are the things that we should experiment with, and we can go on about it later on in the session. But basically, we included marketing as well. We don't want to do hacks that are just like, let's say we're gonna do a campaign, everyone is gonna know about us and they're gonna sign up and pay, but then everything is gonna die out afterwards. We wanna build a sustainable way of basically getting attraction and getting customers as we go. So we've tried to include brand equity as well. We tried to include branding. We tried to include things that we could do in a systematic way, instead of just doing hacks that will do fluctuations that are very sharp without us being sustainable. Because any successful startup has to be sustainable at some point to live in this environment, so to speak.
Right. I want to break down some of these concepts. You're going like way too fast, I think.
Yeah, I'm gonna slow down. That's something that I'm usually.
So
thank you for telling me
about Instabug, right? The app that is used by companies around the world to basically track and recognize bugs and be able to report them with shaking the phone, right?
Sure.
These are the basics.
yeah, so if you want to like do super simple like explanation of what we do, so basically Instabug is we go after any company who has a mobile application, and in general when you have a mobile application you don't want the application to have bugs or it crashes, because usually if you're using an application and it's buggy, you're either going to delete it and forget about it, or you're going to be very frustrated with it. So we wanted to help the teams that are building applications to, as you said, try to squash any problems that they have in their applications. And simply put, if you have any problem and you're frustrated, you just shake the phone. Once you shake the phone, there is a pop-up that pops up, and you basically say, hey, I have a problem with 1, 2, 3, the button is not working, I'm trying to pay and something, there's a glitch, and you send it over. That's it from your end as a user. And then the team that uses our product, they get all the details that you weren't able to send because you're not technical at the end of the day, and I'm not as well. It tells you like probably there is a problem with the network, there's a problem that something went wrong with the code, so here's what you should be working on. So it helps these companies to figure out what went wrong and how not to make it wrong again. It's ironically, it's not an app. It's a chunk of code. You take the code, you put it in your app. It's usually synonym with like the code itself. So yeah, basically that's Instabug. You shake the phone, you send whatever the problem is, and we do the magic.
Right. So your customers are companies, not the private users, huh?
So we're a B2B model. Yeah, exactly. And we sell the software as a subscription model.
Right. So when you were talking about growth hacking techniques that you were applying, I would love us to walk us through the examples of how you apply those. When you talk about brand equity, what do you mean exactly? So like, can we go a little bit slowly through, how did you identify the persona and what did that look like, right? We're like kind of unraveling the steps to build a strategy, right? We're going to go through the 7 strategies a bit later, but let's unravel first, like, how do you go from the beginning through that kind of strategy?
Awesome. So let's start at day 1. You have an idea and you started working on it, and you have an MVP. MVP is a minimal viable product. So the Instabug we are currently working on is not the same Instabug we started when Instabug started in 2013. So when we started and when I joined, we just had one feature of the suite of products that we have now. And this feature, we were assuming that it would work with some personas. So when I started out, the first thing I did before doing any growth processes or any growth hacking ideas was to figure out what do I have on hand and who am I selling it to? And that made me like go through the process and the team as well to figure out the personas and to create what we call the ideal customer profile. Because at the end of the day, we wanted to help a lot of teams, but then we wanted to start with the team that this feature would make the most sense to. So when we started out, it was basically we have a reporting feature where people shake their phones to send whatever issues they have. Most probably the ones who are going to make use of it will be developers who are actually working on the app, making sure that the app is going well and doesn't have any bugs or issues. So for me, the first thing was developing the strategy of who are we selling this to. So after we did the ICP, the ideal customer profile, the personas, now I know that this persona is where everything I'm gonna create everything on. So the second thing was to basically figure out where are these personas available or online, or maybe if it's not online for your business, where are they? What do they do? What pieces of content do they engage with? So anything related about them, you have to know it, so that you would know what ideas that you should implement would make sense to these personas, so to speak.
Right. So we have Ahmed and Omar in the audience asking to slow down things a little bit. I think we're going really fast.
I'm so sorry. Yeah. Okay. Sure.
So we identify the persona, we identify the persona, the target, right? And we identify, as you were saying, the kind of products that they consume. We identify their habits. We kind of outline that persona, right?
Mm-hmm.
Good. Step 3.
Okay, so sorry guys about going fast. I'm known for being a speed talker, so keep on telling me to slow down. That's a challenge I need to work on.
Your mind goes really fast, it looks.
Yeah, my mind is like, okay, so I need to slow down. So yeah, basically when we figured out the persona, we didn't have a budget, and we weren't that many people to basically run all the ideas that we had in mind. So the second thing was figuring out a process by which we can evaluate the ideas that we have in mind. Mm-hmm. What do I mean by a process? I mean, like, okay, after we brainstorm, we have a lot of amazing ideas. Maybe you have an idea that you want to do a social media campaign. Another idea would be to go to events. Maybe a third idea would produce content. And for us to do all of these at the same time, it didn't make sense. It's
Right.
the same as me like talking very fast and not being able to like do anything about it. So we had to slow down and put all the ideas that we have in mind, and to start putting a model by which we see which of these ideas are going to get us to our target. So the third point is basically, what is your target that you want to achieve at this point? If you're starting out, does it make sense for you to put a target where you have to like get people to purchase something on your app? In our case, does it make sense for us to get people to pay right away? Or what would be the steps or the target that we want, so we'd be able to make steps to reach this target? So for us, it was the target. And the target that we had at this point was to basically get customers. Customers here means that we wanted people to try out the product itself. So the target was to get X number of people to try out the product. It wasn't, nowadays, it's a revenue target. But back then, we wanted to be able to validate this, whether this works or not. So we had to identify which target makes sense for the stage we are at the startup level we're in.
Right, right. So once you kind of figure out that kind of strategy, how do you decide basically?
So there are different models or ways to go about it, but I'll tell you, like one big part of growth marketing or growth hacking is having what's called a North Star metric, or having a metric that you always united around, and this is the target that you're all focused on. So what we do is, after we decide the target, whether it's a monetary target or an activation metric or whatever it may be, we want to figure out the steps that will take us to this target. So I'll give an example. It's not Instabug related, but if I have an application and I want, the end goal in mind is to get people to purchase things on my app, it doesn't make sense for me to just put ideas that, assuming that people will purchase things. I need to break it down further. So I need to see what is the steps before purchasing whatever is on my app. Maybe the initial step right before it is to get people to actually download the app. So that's a step. And then before downloading the app, they need to know about me. So I need to create some awareness. So I need to do awareness first. So then my funnel, which is the word we usually or commonly use in growth marketing or growth hacking, is what is my funnel. I do awareness, and then I do acquire these people, and then I do activation, and then I monetize these people, or maybe like make them retained or get them to do referrals. But then if I don't have a funnel, I will not know which activity I'm brainstorming about would fit where, because I need to know if I'm doing content to basically activate people or doing content to acquire people. So having a funnel is very important and very integral. It's as if it's a core mandate in growth hacking.
Right. And once you decide that, how do you start sort of implementing, or can you give us an example of one funnel that you've utilized with Instabug?
Perfect. So in our case, when we had this MVP and we wanted people to subscribe to use it, our funnel was to basically, whatever activity we're going to do, we need to first create awareness. So our first step in the funnel is to create awareness. And then after creating awareness here means that I will tell you this like maybe later in the next point, what would be the things I would do to create awareness and which channels should I use to create awareness. But then what do I do afterwards? I need these people who maybe they saw on the website or maybe saw me on social media. I need them to actually come try out the product. And for our case, it was visiting the website and signing up. So the second point, it was basically signing up. So after they are aware, they sign up for a free trial. And after the free trial, they get to integrate the product itself. So this was the activation. And then after the activation, it was the time where they decide whether they want to subscribe to the product or not. So our funnel was awareness, acquisition, activation, and monetization, which in our case translates into consuming content to be aware about Instabug, and then to sign up to try us out, and then to actually try us out by integrating our solution with their application, and then to subscribe. So that's a typical funnel for us, and that's how we measure all the activities that we work on. If you're let's say we're doing 4 marketing activities, we'll see which ones have the better numbers in terms of the way they go throughout the funnel.
Right. And when we talk about targeting customers, right, we usually talk about early adopters, innovators. Can you walk us a little bit through the difference and how do you identify each?
Okay, so basically early adopters or innovators are people. So if you're, it depends from B2B to B, from business to business or B2 business to customers, but any product that you're building or any service that you're putting out there, you need to have early believers or the people who are going to be advocates for your product. In our case, we wanted to see who are the ones who are so obsessed about their apps, and they were known for being like customer centric, the ones who are people are saying, oh, this app is amazing, and we wanted them to believe that our product would help them be better, so that if these people, the best in market, when they see when these are our users, it will help us convince other people or convince the masses or convince the doubters that our product works. So in our case, it was basically figuring out who are the outliers in the market, who are the best in class, and we should go after the best in class, because this is a strategy that is usually uncommon. You sometimes think that you should go like bigger and like cast a wide net and then get a lot of people. But then our initial strategy was to get the very, very few people that are very niche and very into what they're doing, get them to try our product out. And this would actually build our brand equity as well, because we're being associated with the best in market for applications. So now you're taking social proof. Now everyone knows that you're working with these type of customers, so that helps us in our marketing as well. This is a marketing channel on its own.
Right. I love this concept, and I wanted to stop on it for a minute. Brand equity. So what is it, and how do you integrate that with your growth marketing or growth hacking efforts?
Perfect. So one of the things about growth marketing and hacking, and especially when we're working, we're tracking all the activities that we do. We always want to make sure that the activities we're working on get us results right away. And the tricky part about brand awareness and brand equity is that, so let me start by brand awareness and take you into brand equity. Sometimes you do campaigns just to get people to know about you, even though they're not going to take any immediate action, and maybe they're not going to buy right away. But for you to actually get them to buy at some point later down the line, you need them to know about your brand and know why your brand is interesting or why your branding is important. So brand equity is basically how you're perceived by the market and how you're perceived by the people that might be interested in your product. And it's usually like very integral to focus on brand equity by doing a lot of activities aside from just getting people to pay for the product right away. Meaning that when we were building the Instabug brand, so to speak, it wasn't just us doing activities or doing marketing that would, if you pay, let's say you put $100, you're gonna get X number of people to subscribe and that's it. We want to pay money, or let's do partnerships or do like social media and do content and be actually great at the content that we do, so that people, even if they're not interested in buying Instabug right away, they would know that I know this brand. I know that this brand, I saw their post one day that was talking about something related to mobile development. So they look legit, they look great. So that's what means, that's what is meant by brand equity, is to basically build a lot of buzz and a lot of empathy around your brand, so that when people know, hey, I know this brand, and maybe when later down the line when someone talks about, hey, I need to integrate a bug reporting tool in my app, it says, you know what, I've seen a post by or a content blog by a company called Instabug, let's check it out.
Right. We have the first question from our audience. It's an anonymous question. They're saying, how is building a community around your company helping you sell more, or how can that help you sell more?
So the interesting thing about Instabug, we are doing marketing in two folds. The first fold is to sell to our customers, and then the second one is doing employer branding, where we basically want to create a culture where people are actually interested in joining Instabug. I'll talk about the earlier first. Developers, in our case, the persona or the target market that we were after are developers and are people working, are techie people, and techie people are not usually social on social media, that as much as we're like social on social media. So we need to find the communities that they're on and engage with them to see how eventually they're gonna convert into customers. So building communities was one of the things that we focused on early on, by trying to figure out, when I told you earlier about the personas, I wanted to see where the personas are online. So whether they are on specific Facebook groups, whether they are on LinkedIn. In our case, they were on very techie social media websites that you usually don't go on if you're not a techie person. We needed to know which communities they are, maybe like something called Stack Overflow. Another website would be GitHub. They post a lot of code. So you need to be in these communities. And after we knew the communities that they were on, we started engaging, whether by doing content marketing. We produced a lot. So one of the main things that you could do is to basically see the market you're in, what are their struggles, what are their challenges, and how could you produce interesting content for them to help their problems, regardless whether it's something related to your product or not.
Right.
And when we did a lot of content about this, how to create better apps, how to do better testing, how to make users fall in love with your application, all of these articles. And when people started searching for problems that they're actually facing, they saw the content pieces that we wrote. So they started engaging with us, and we started being loved in the community of technical people. And one of the main interesting things is that it helped us grow our customer base organically, without us having to do a lot of efforts when it comes to, so we did a lot of efforts organically when it comes to content, when it comes to being on the communities, helping out, doing a lot of partnerships with other community leaders to help the community become better, so that eventually we would be known in the community as the ones who are helping our customers.
Right, right. It's related to what you call value added marketing, right?
Exactly.
Right.
You need to be thought leaders at the end of the day. It depends from one industry to another, to be honest. Most of the things I'm talking about is related to software as a service or like a business to business, but the process itself, or like the high level idea of it, can apply anywhere. Like if you're doing a B2C product, you just need to understand or like produce content that is valuable for your community. I can give an example. Like just 2 days ago, I was using an app on my phone. It's for grocery shopping, and they were sending content pieces on their newsletter on how to create cakes and other stuff in the kitchen for you since we're in the quarantine. And I found it very interesting because it's just a grocery shopping app, but then they're producing content related to how you could make your time more fun at home. And I felt like, hey, I like this brand more because they're producing fun content for me to consume.
Right. Right. Related to content marketing, so we have a few questions. Muatez is asking, how many articles or how long does it take to start to see the effect of your content strategy?
So SEO at large takes time. I think, yeah. So very, very interesting question. It takes time. Define time, that's relative, but let me give you an example of how we started our content or SEO efforts. We started at zero, so we didn't have a blog. So we just wanted to basically experiment if we start figuring out which keywords or queries people search for. It's very easy to do using different tools. You could just Google on Google the typical questions you would find your target market asking, and it will give you suggestions. There's a keyword planner where we basically, Google tells you all the keywords that people are looking for at the moment, and then the volume of people who are searching for these keywords. So we took all the keywords that we thought was interesting for our customers or ideal customers, because we didn't have any back then, and we started figuring out content ideas that we would produce and distribute on the social media platforms where the target market that we're interested in is on. And we started seeing that when we do a lot of distribution, if it's valuable content and if people are searching for the keywords or searching for these questions, you'll start getting traction right away. And also it takes time for you, like Google itself, it ranks you if the content is being visited by more people, if you're doing if you're doing distribution right, if you're getting people to give you links and to share your content, you'll start seeing that it could go a long way. It could take weeks or days just to get visits or to get traction on the blogs itself or the content pieces. But then you have to see how long does it take for them to convert into the second step that you're interested in. Did they visit your website? Did they download the app? Did they call you? Whatever action you wanted them to do. And then when you do different pieces of content, you start seeing which ones converts the best. So you see, okay, if this type of content gets me a lot of traffic, but it doesn't convert into the second interesting thing I want them to do, I better focus on this specific content instead. Maybe do this for awareness, do this for fun, do this to make people like the brand. But then I know if I want to get my targets, I need to do these type of content and I need to double down on them as I go. But usually it takes for us, we started seeing the graph for traffic started spiking after a month of us producing content every week. You have to be very consistent, and you have to do like a lot of experiments at the same time, and to have a control. Like, let's say I'm gonna do 4 blogs a week. All these blogs are having different topics, but then they're gonna be posted the same length. We're gonna have we're not gonna do مثلا video content and then another one which is written content. I'm gonna do them all written. I'm gonna see which one of them work, and then maybe the next week I'll try different formats of content and so on until I see which combos work together. So we need to give yourself time and to put a process by which you check which ones work best for you.
Right, right. Mohammed is asking, how do you determine KPIs for each step of the funnel, especially if you don't have enough historical data?
Perfect. So it's a mix of two things. Your industry benchmarks. In our case, all the data wasn't that available, so we weren't able to figure out, okay, all of the companies that are relevant to us or the industry that's like us, what are their different conversion rates. So it was a bit of us. We did it in two folds: the bottom-up approach, where you basically know the end goal target that you have. So let's say you need to get 10 customers. So you do assumptions that if I want to get 10 customers, and the step before getting them, or like getting them to subscribe, is to actually try the product, I'm assuming that 20 needs to try the product so that 10 would pay, because I know that maybe half of them are going to drop off. That's an assumption. And then I say, okay, so for the 20 of them to try the product, I need to get at least 40, because I know that half of the people who download my app or subscribe are going to drop off, and then only half is going to try the product. So to get 40 to download the app or maybe to use Instabug, I need to get 100 to actually see the content. And then I do a content, I do everything I could do to reach 100 people. And then I see, is my theory or my assumption correct or not? Because maybe I'll get 100 and only one would pay. So that means that the funnel I made wasn't right. Or hey, my funnel was underestimated, so I need to increase the numbers a bit. And then I validate this if there are benchmarks in the industry to see whether I'm there or not. At first, it was mostly assumptions, and I needed to document everything so that any experiment that we do, we check all the numbers and we check how well it works in the funnel. And then we start enhancing our intuition, because marketing, it's both qualitative and quantitative. You can't validate everything that you're doing with numbers, so you have to have numbers when you could, and if you don't, you just need to do assumptions and stick to them.
Right. Right. We have a few questions coming from Facebook as well. Omar is asking, okay, what about the second point that has to do with building a culture for people to be eager to join Instabug? This is referring to what you were talking initially about the communities.
Sure. Okay, so now it seems as if, okay, Instabug is a very cool startup. It's known. We just raised fund, and it's all fun and whatnot. But when you started out, it was a bit of a struggle. At least when I joined, I was coming from a non-technical background, so it was very hard for me to understand what was going on. We're selling a very technical product to a very niche market. So us, when you started out the employer branding at first, we were thinking, how could we get people to get excited about something that they don't really understand if they don't come from a technical background? And it was all about our core values that we built early, that founders built early on. Core values here was like a set of values that they want to make sure that anyone who joins the company or know about the company stick by these values, whether one of them is make it happen, commitment as founder, work hard, play hard. And all of these values shaped our culture so that the culture would organically entice more people to join. And whenever anyone asks about their experience at Instabug, they would say things related to the culture that we've built through the core values. And we also wanted to share, as we started sharing doing a lot of internal activities, that these internal activities started getting interest from the people who wanted to join. Things like doing weekly talks that we branded with the Bug Talks, where we get together and someone from the team would actually come talk about a different topic each time. Someone would talk about fishing, someone would talk about music. It doesn't have to be anything related to work. Mm-hmm. We also did retreats where we flew the team. We went to Nepal, we went to Beirut. So
yeah, I remember that. I remember talking to Omar about that. Yeah.
Yeah, it was like everyone was like, "Whoa, are you gonna take the whole company and travel?" And that was amazing on both ends, because a lot of people that you don't usually get to interact with in the company, you get to see them in a different light. And also it's just fun for you to, because the value I told you about, the work hard, play hard, the core value, We really work hard, so we want to play hard as well. So that's why we go all out when we want to have fun. And all of these activities that we did, we started marketing, not marketing, but just like talking about it and posting it on social media. People started picking it up, and that's how we created a culture around us basically enjoying work and having to work on, actually, like, we're trying to build Egypt's first unicorn, where the company would be valued by a $1 million valuation. So that just like an outrageous dream for us, to make us always like excited about working. And I think that just organically emitted to the outside market, or like the people who are interested in joining.
Right. That's amazing. I have another question from our webinar audience. Amr Mansour is asking, what are the most important metrics to track daily? I already know my North Star metric, but is there any other metric to track daily? Should I break down my metrics?
Definitely, yes. How we do metrics, we break it down. So we have a yearly target, and then the yearly target, we break it into quarters. And then for the quarters, we do what we call a weekly meeting or a weekly planning. So I know in the quarter, I need to get, I have a funnel. My end goal is to the North metric, which is the revenues, but then I have a funnel that I need to make sure that I'm hitting, and these act as a milestone for the target I'm looking towards or on. So I have a funnel of visits, signups, people who integrate, and then people who pay. And I know that this funnel, to get the number of paying customers, I need to look at this funnel. I need to make sure that I have the health checkpoints. So I look at it every week. So everyone in the team is responsible for a specific marketing activity, and they have assumptions on how well the activities would work. So for them to validate their assumptions, we do a weekly planning on Sundays where everyone talks about how their week went, what are their metrics, if there's something that they're still working on. And then we try to correct course in a way to see if, let's say, we had to hit 1,000 visits and we didn't get it. We start doing a problem solving session. Why didn't we reach this? Was it us not producing enough content? Did we do a messaging? We changed something in the messaging? Did we like mess something up, or is it just like a problem in the conversion rate? So we need to figure out how we could enhance maybe the sign up page, how we could enhance the onboarding flow itself. So having a weekly checkpoint really helps us in keeping ourselves in check, and also trying to iterate as much as fast as possible as well.
Right. So I'm going to read the last question before we dig into the 7 strategies. I'm dying to hear about them. So Ahmed Amin is asking, would you please tell us about the essential team to hack the market when at an early stage?
The team, you mean?
Essential team. Yeah. What's the essential team to hack the market? He's ambitious.
Wow. Okay, that's a tricky question. My team and I always talk about how our growth team came to be, and it was we were very lucky that when I started out, I started on my own, and I was just thinking of things that I could do, like content marketing, social media, all the typical things that you would think of that would create a digital presence online. But then as we went by, and since growth hacking needs a lot of data analytics, and it needs a lot of engineering, design thinking, and people who are creative, we started assembling some heroes, so to speak, that would join the team and make it better. I will tell you the skill set that the team had, and you could just think whether this makes sense for your team or not. But basically, the second addition to the team was someone who came from an engineering background. And since we were doing a lot of things online, we wanted to do a lot of automation, we wanted to do a lot of personalization as well. We had to bring someone from a technical background. That definitely helped a lot and made us it made us super fast. It made us engineers are known for solving problems very quickly and very efficiently, so that was a great addition to the team. We also had a creative marketeer who was always about coming up with grand ideas and basically being very creative, writing a lot of great content. So having a great content person with a creative background helped as well. And also having someone, let's say months down the line, we started figuring out that there is a certain channel that we're really doing good in. We needed to get an expert for this channel. For our case, it was paid marketing, digital, and all the Google ads, Facebook ads, LinkedIn ads. We needed someone who actually could nail this down. So you had to bring a performance marketeer, and the team started being, everyone knows their strength points, and we work together as a unit. because like no one had the whole entire growth hacking on their shoulders. So I don't think there is a specific person. A lot of people call themselves this growth hackers, and they might be. And but then in our case, it was a team, and we figured it out as we went. So to answer your question, the founder needs to have a growth mentality. So we were very lucky that the founder was actually very excited about implementing a growth process. He wanted to do a lot of experiments. We were doing something that's called failed learnings, and we wanted to fail very quickly, and we wanted to do a lot of failures so that we could learn from these failures and go on and see which successes we could replicate. But then the founder was okay with us failing a lot in the beginning. Because of these failures, we knew how to do better experiments in a shorter amount of time so that we would know which pillars would work, so that we could get more experts that would join us on scaling these pillars. It just needs someone to be experimental, and it needs someone to have grit and resilience when it comes to being okay with failing a lot. And that's in the early days. As you go by, it depends on where you're at. Do you need someone to help in onboarding? Do you need someone to help in content writing? It will be more clear as you start the initial process and framework. I know this was a very long answer, so tell me if I missed something or I was going on too fast. But,
it was good for us. It was good for us over here. So let's dive into the 7 strategies we were talking about at the beginning. So I'd love for you to walk us with some examples on what are the main strategies or the key strategies for growth hacking that we can utilize.
Perfect. So there are tons of articles and resources about the different growth hacks that could be done. We collected some of them, and just like I'll talk about some examples. Mm-hmm. So one of the interesting things about growth hacking is that you can just hack growth without you spending a lot of money or a lot of resources. And one of these strategies was to basically build a referral program. You'll often find a lot of referral programs in apps or like in services or products that you typically use. One of the most intuitive ones you would find at Uber or Careem, where basically if you refer someone, you get a percentage off or you get a free ride, and then the other person will get a free ride. It creates what's called as a viral effect. Instead of you paying people to come, it's usually easier for people, because if I'm your friend and I tell you to try something, it's so much better and so much organic than me doing an ad to convince you to use my product. Yeah. So if you're having a product that has a virality, or like if you can build a referral program, it doesn't mean that it has to be a B2C product or a business to consumer. In our case, it could be a developer referring us to another developer and taking some months off. It could be Dropbox when they started out. Sean Ellis, who coined the growth hacking term, he basically started this by Dropbox in the early days to get free space, which was something that people wanted. You had to refer more people, and the more people you refer, the more space you get. So you end up referring 10 or 20 of your friends because you just need more space for your photos or your files. Right. And that's how it made Dropbox the company it is today. So definitely referral programs are something that you shouldn't miss if it could work for your model. That's right. One of them.
Right. Referrals is one of them. Then what's the second one?
Sure. So let me shake it up a bit. So, okay, let me tell you about one. If you're a product that could do like wow customers, and let me tell you what's wow, but that would help you create actually word of mouth as well, and it will make the relationship better. An example would be, I'll give Instabug as an example. Our customer support team isn't called customer support, it's called customer happiness. And our team is focused on basically trying to make the customer happy, not just like solving their problems or issues. And by happy, meaning that if you're doing an interaction with a customer and you finished the demo with them, or you finished a call, or they just visited, you can basically send them a gift, or you send them a voucher, or you send them something that would make their day nicer. If they are actual customers, one of our cases was one of our customers, she just had a baby, so they sent her a flower and like flowers and a congrats note. This is like, when I say it, it feels like, yeah, so what? But then you don't know the effect of you going above and beyond with customers, and not just solving their problems, but making them happy. One of the examples is one of the companies, there are a lot of companies now that basically, especially the ones who are B2B, when you go on a demo, you could just you can send them something afterwards. You could send them a book of something that you were just talking about, or you could send them a link to an event that they should attend, and basically making people happy banks a lot on the company as well. One of the things that we did didn't work out, like it didn't, we discontinued it, but it was working out for a while, is that we were inviting people to leads to pizzas. So we had this bot, and basically we told people when they get on the demos with Instabug, we're going to send a pizza to their office for lunch. And that was one of the ideas that got people to wonder, even if they're not interested at the moment, is like, oh, you're very interesting. We're like, that's cool, weird but cool, but yeah, let's do it. And then they told us yes. Swag is something important as well. So sending swag, always, even if they're not current customers, it will make the day of these people.
Right. So that's the second one, right? Creating sort of swag, making customers happy. What would be the third one?
So basically, if you can do a free trial, so there's the freemium and premium models. The freemium is to basically offer everything that you have, that people would pay for at a certain period of time, or for a fraction of what you show, for free. An example would be Spotify. Or any like Headspace, for instance. If anyone is meditating nowadays and using the app, it gives you like 7 days free trial on all the meditation clips they have. Or Spotify would give you some of their playlists for free. Why do they do so? Not everyone is as excited about your product as you think they are. Some people are skeptical. Some people don't know actually. So I can convince you that my product would help you, but you will not be convinced until you see it for yourself that my product would help you. So offering a freemium is a way for you to show everything, like put all the cards on the table and get them to be excited about, hey, you know what, I'm gonna actually try this one out or pay for it. So definitely doing free trials is something that you shouldn't miss if it's possible to do it.
Right. Number 4.
Okay, let me bring up an example for number 4. So, okay, that's very important for applications and anyone who has people to sign up for their products or services. Integrating with social media is very important. A lot of people, and this is something that you could test. When you're downloading a new app, you have 2 options, either to sign up, put your information, or just to sign up through Facebook or Twitter or whatever social media platform you're using. It proved in many cases, and there was a lot of case studies about it, that social media logins are or signups increases dramatically when it's when you're using something that you already logged in on, instead of you signing up all again. So definitely by integrating social networks into your applications or your websites or whatever tool or service or product you're selling, would enhance the second part I was telling you about, the funnel. The conversion between people who knows about you and the people who actually uses you would be the metric that you want to test in this experiment. To try out different sign-up forms, whether by social media or not, and see which ones actually have better results.
Right. We have another question before we move forward to this 5th strategy. Growth hacking strategies for a product based on one of the emerging technologies like AR or blockchain is completely different than any tech product. What do you think about it? This question comes from Andu.
Definitely, most of the things the examples I give, if it's related to Instabug, it might not work for your line of business. But the thing about growth, whether you're doing it for business development, whether you're doing it for content, whether you're doing it for, let's say, events or social media, each of these pillars or channels I talked about are completely different, and you could hire a completely different person with different skill sets to apply it. But then what's interesting about growth marketing or the process itself is that you are championing or focusing on the experimental part of it and the iterative part of it and the data analysis, analytics, and iterations. So let's say you're doing sales calls. It's not related to marketing at all. But then you could actually put a process for these sales calls, see how many people you're engaging with, how many people you got, how many people answered. If you change the script of the call, would it change the results or not? And after they do the calls, what's the difference between the people who actually got a free trial and the ones who didn't? So if it's AI, if it's machine learning, if it's a shopping business, if it's even like an ed tech or whatever it is, doesn't matter what it is, it doesn't matter what you're doing, it matters that you're focusing on looking at data. And to look at data, there are tons of tools that you could do so. You can even just plug data on Excel. At the end of the day, if I'm going into meetings every day and my line of business I have to meet people every day to close deals, I can put the number of activities I do, and then I do some tweaks and see which ones work. And this is all I could take notes on that. So definitely the examples I'm saying might not be relevant, but then the process itself, and I could send more resources later, like maybe in the in the thread or the emails if people are interested. The workflow itself and how you could do planning, how you could do iterations, how you could look at data and make your failures faster so that you could learn from them.
Right. Let's move on to the fifth strategy. What is the fifth strategy for growth hacking?
Okay, perfect. So lead magnets. By lead magnets is that you basically offer, like you provide something and you attract leads with it. When I was talking earlier about us producing content, some of these content, we made it gated content. By gated meaning that, okay, so we have this amazing resource that would help you in 1, 2, 3, 4. And to access this resource, you just need to leave your email or you just need to subscribe to our newsletter. And then you start attracting leads with valuable value-added content or value-added pieces. Or let's say I'm going to do a deep dive session with someone if I'm a consulting company, and it's completely for free. You just need to leave your info. I start attracting leads without me spending any money on it, or it's basically very inexpensive way. So for instance, what we do is that we have a lot of gated content. We put it on places where we know people would be actually wanting to consume this content. We actually sometimes do ads to promote these content pieces. And then eventually we take these leads and we nurture these leads, meaning that we send them other emails. Now they know more about us, so that later down the line, if we ask them, hey, what are your challenges? Is it possible for us to talk briefly to see if there's a fit between what we're doing and what you guys are challenged with? That immediately helps you take the leads from being completely unaware, to actually considering your brand or considering your product or service for being part of their workflow or part of their daily lives.
Right. Strategy number 6.
Yeah, okay. So basically, one of them, so that's that would sound very obvious, but making shortages of anything you have, especially if you're an e-commerce business. Usually you see, which you take it for granted sometimes, is that when you're on an e-commerce platform and you want to buy something, and then it tells you, hey, this something is going to run out at some point, or there's a limited amount of items, or let's say you want to book, nowadays we can't travel, but then on booking.com, sometimes when you're looking for like places to book, it tells you, hey, this person has been looking at this and they might book now. It creates a sense of urgency, and sometimes the loss aversion a tactic. So a lot of the marketing activities that's being done relates to psychology. People don't want to lose, and when you make people feel like they're losing or missing out, they start feeling, hey, I might take this opportunity now. If you can mix it with a discount, like there's a special discount if you use it now. If it doesn't have to be an item shortage, but it could be like, hey, this is something that's gonna go away. So create FOMO, so that people would be actually excited about getting on it instead of them missing out.
Right. Before moving on to the last one, Omar Zain is asking, what is the difference between customer success and customer happiness? He's talking about your anecdote with Instabug.
You've been checking about Instabug, yeah. You've been doing some research. Cool. So customer happiness are synonym with customer support. And basically, they are the ones who, if there is a problem that someone is facing, they talk with our customer happiness people, and they start to figure out what the problem was. Is it a technical problem? That they didn't know something that we could tell them about? We could do extra, like help them. Maybe he did something or she did something that they weren't supposed to do, so we tell them how to do it. And we try to close this ticket or close this conversation with them saying that the problem is solved, everything is going great, they have no issues, and that's it. So the customer happiness team is always working on making sure that our customers are so happy. The way they get assessed or they assess themselves is with the Net Promoter Score. They send to ask customers, how well are you happy with Instabug? How was your interaction with us? Is there anything that's missing? And we're always trying to figure out ways to make people more happy about it. As opposed to customer success. Customer success, basically, once someone subscribes for Instabug, they are actual paying customers, and they need account managers, and they need someone to make sure that they're making the most use out of Instabug. So customer success makes sure that the ones who are actually customers are succeeding further, whether by eliminating that they leave. So in our lingo, it's called churn. Churn is when someone unsubscribes. So let's say someone is using Netflix and they decide to unsubscribe. That's called churn in our world. So we don't want anyone to leave. So we try to figure out the sentiment of the people who are using the product. Are they using it enough? Is there enough activity? Should we get on calls with them and try to make them use the product more? And they also try to take the customers from just using specific features into using all the solution or all the features that we have at Instabug. So they do a bit of sales, and they do a bit of customer upselling. They do a bit of reducing negative churn. So they are like two sides of the same coin, but doing entirely different things, all aimed at making sure that the customer stays customers, and they become they make most use out of the solution or the product itself.
Right. We've reached the point where it's the last strategy, the last growth hacking strategy. What's number 7?
What's number 7? Do anyone want to take a guess before I say it, or?
I don't know if I would venture into that.
So okay, social interaction is very important, and being social with your customers really works, especially if you're a B2C company. Doing contests and basically doing raffles and doing engagement with your customers is very important in growth hacking. So I'll give you an example. It's a bit. So actually interacting with customers and making them think about whether or not doing a contest, say on Nomads, for instance, they were posting who has the best travel photo, and the ones who get the most likes or get the most shares, they're gonna take this amazing trip sponsored by X to travel. And basically you see a lot of people trying to engage and trying to show the best photos they have. I gave a very recent example I saw right before the quarantine, just to give you an example of how easy and how hacky it could be. You just need to find something that people would like to share about themselves, or maybe a contest that people would love to be part of. Leave them be. You'll see a lot of virality, you'll see a lot of word of mouth, and if the value that you're giving at the end is worth their while, they're gonna engage. So definitely thinking of ideas to engage your customers through doing contests or raffles or whatever it may be, it really helps you connect with your customer base, and it helps you unlock other people that wouldn't have been part of your customer base if you have done the traditional marketing activities that you typically do.
Right. So Ayat from our Facebook community, she's summarizing the seven strategies. This is amazing. Number 1,
thank referrals. You so much. Yeah.
Number 2, swag. Number 3, premium free trials. Number 4, integrating with social media for signups. Number 5, nurture lead magnets. Number 6, psychology promos. Interesting way to put it. Number 7, social customer interactions. I think that summarizes
amazing.
It quite well. Thank you, Ayat.
You did better than I did.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much. Unfortunately, we've run out of time for more questions. Yasmine, it has been so rich. What a rich session. Thank you so much for all this knowledge and for slowing down for us who are finding it difficult to keep up with this growth hacking pace.
Yeah, next time I promise I'll tone it down. Definitely growth hacking needs more time. So whenever you guys feel like you have any questions, please send us an email. We have a lot of resources. So thank you so much, Valentina, for having me. It was a pleasure. And for keeping up with my
with your speed, which is amazing. It shows that you're a true growth hacker. You go so fast. Thank you so much once again. Thank you to our audience on both Zoom and Facebook. We will see you tomorrow for another quarantine sessions. We have a guest from the US. He's an award-winning coach. He was awarded actually the top small business coach in the US. His name is Red Power. So tune in at 8 p.m. Thank you so much.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.